So, welcome to Scribbles and Quills, and welcome to everyone joining us using Zoom. Whether you are here in the room with us or tuning in from wherever you are in the world, this space was built for you. Scribbles and Quills exists to be exactly what it is right now, a place where readers and authors can sit together, be in community, and talk about the stories that matter. Tonight we are celebrating the launch of Beyond First Glance, the new collection from Scarlet Ibis Cheese. We had originally planned a larger event, of course, but we shifted the format, and I think, honestly, this is better. We're going to have a real conversation, just us, and then open the floor to everyone in the room and on Zoom. So let's get right into it. Scarlett, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And thank you to Scribbles and Quills for being such a sponsor of my art. I appreciate and love you so much.
We love you too. So, Scarlet, beyond first glance, moves past the initial spark of romance and digs into the heavy lifting of love. The repair, the caregiving, the deliberate choice to stay. What made you want to explore the gritty, unglamorous side of relationships? And how does this reflect the reality of mature intimacy?
What a great question to start. So I would say what made me want to do this? My readers. So um, when I wrote my first book, Scarlet Yearnings, which is available at Scribbles and Quills, my very first book. Immediately, it was also a collection of short stories, and immediately readers wanted to know more. And this is what I've actually found about short story collections is that people are never satisfied. But the interesting thing is, the questions that I actually got were, what about the other person in the story? Or they wanted to know more about the other side. And so I thought, even as I published Scarlet Yearnings, I wanted to make sure that people actually were able to get the other side of the story, because I think it's meaningful to understand what the other person is thinking. So many times we look at things from just one side, as it were, but I think it's shortchanging all of us. Why the other side of relationships, I think, is because as somebody who's been married for quite some time, I know that it is not easy at all. That the person who you would have connected with or married, in that wonderful moment of joy, immediately starts changing. And so the choice of staying together, the things that you might go through throughout life, I feel like I don't see enough of the joy that's associated with that. And so I really wanted to make sure that my story embraced not just the other side of the story, but the other ways that love exists and what it really takes to stay married, stay together, to really mature into that other relationship.
Yeah, that's great. Why don't we give our audience a little synopsis at this point of the book itself? So tell us a little bit about the collection and what you really intended to do with these stories.
Yeah. So Beyond First Glance is a collection of 12 stories. It's 12 because the first book also had 12 stories. For the most part, I think about eight of the stories actually started in the first book, but it is a standalone. So if you started with Beyond First Glance, that's okay. I wrote them so that it could be standalone stories, although they have a lineage, a connection, a starting point in the first book. And so, what I really wanted to give were all kinds of different love. So it begins with a story, and this is for the published edition. It begins with a story of two people who were very much in love right in college, in the young, free, loving start, budding. And then they did not connect. And then years later, they're both single and they find each other. Serendipity. I am infatuated with that concept of destined love, of meeting again, of connecting again, of fated love. And so that story released for the day is a new one. It's actually not rooted in something that came before. And I felt like that was a good and meaningful way to open this collection. It also has one of my favorite stories in the first book was Love Me Daddy, which was just a moment, a snapshot, as it were, about a relationship. Well, not even a relationship, somebody who saw someone, right? A woman seeing a man from a coffee shop window and thinking, oh, he is totally hot, right? And in this book, I do explore what happens after that initial connection. And that one is code white, code black, code white. And also a very fun read, very different. And that explores interracial love. So the woman is black, the man is white, and really having her having him into her life and she into his in very unique and interesting ways. I think what you will find about a lot of my stories, Radia, is that I do want multicultural. I want us to see and experience these individuals as human, to be able to see, no matter what they look like, to see that they could be you. I think for my own self, I am Trinidadian, but I married a person who is of Haitian descent, born in Haiti, actually. He's a Haitian person. And actually, that I need to write about that at some point. But that was very interesting too, because it's not interracial, but it's definitely intercultural, and it was not easy either. So I think I want to display these things because, especially in the world we live in today, there is so much hate, I think, and just intolerance. And I think that if we are able to see each other as human, that we might be able to be more open to who the other person is. Okay, enough about that. So basically, 12 stories, all kinds of love, new love. I do have What Grandmothers Hold, and that is taking two beloved characters from my first book and my second book, Cecil and Mary, and talking about them. So often we don't think about grandparents as loving and being in love. And so I wanted to also show that as well. And then the last one I'll mention is All the Versions of Love. This one was also rooted in the first one, but in a very different way. And I like to surprise my readers sometimes as well, too. And so in the first book, we saw these two characters, Jakob and Georgetta, and they met in a grocery store again, a moment, a glimpse in time, and they were reunited, right? But what you didn't know is that actually she was having an episode associated with Alzheimer's, and so in this book, Beyond First Glance, I go into more of that. The last thing that I would say is the first book really were snapshots. They were really a snapshot of a moment. So they were very short stories. It's a very quick read. Beyond First Glance goes into a little bit more. Most of the stories go into an extended period of time, which is new and different for me. And so I'm always wanting to know how readers respond to that because they wanted more, so I gave a little more in these.
So, in terms of the name Beyond First Glance, what is the significance of that to you, and how did you come to choose that as your title?
Yeah. So I always go through the naming of books is always very interesting, right? So I the first iteration was really long. So So I don't even remember what that was, but it was very long. Whenever you submit for like a copyright, you can put like the working title. And so the working title was I can't even remember like like I did some very long extended name.
Right.
Um, and then as I thought about, because you have to, I realized, think about marketing, think about how people remember, how people will, how you will market the book. And one of the things that I knew is that for the cover, the name cannot be that long. Right? And so it was practical, I think. I wanted something that talks about what the book is about, that it's clear what it's about, um, but also be very practical. I toyed with Love at Second Glance was one title that I thought about. But then, I eventually landed on Beyond First Glance. And then I actually use this service where you can put like two names of things and talk about what it is. I forgot the name of the site, but then people will log on and they will tell you which one they prefer. And Beyond First Glance won, which I thought
Okay.
was very meaningful. So that's how it was. It started very long and convoluted. And then as I am very verbose and but then it came down to two things and I let readers decide which one they thought was better.
Yeah, but I feel like Beyond First Glance really reflects love, because love, you could be infatuated with somebody when you first look at them, but the love is what makes you stay, or the
Yes.
love is what, makes that relationship actually work and, be able to go through all of the different ups and downs and all around. So I think it was a very good choice.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so your stories in this collection span Trinidad, Toronto, New York, and Washington, D.C. You often describe returning to Trinidad as returning to the source. So, how does this geography of these different cities shape the way your characters experience love, forgiveness, and the complexities of the diaspora?
Yeah. Perhaps all of my stories um are people, many of them are from the Caribbean. I see my fellow author Jasmine Payne on. She inspired me to also have somebody from Guyanese descent in there in one of my stories. Um, the way that I look at stories, I use a lot of locations where I have been and where I've known. And I know that there are people like me from the Caribbean in those places. And so I leverage that a lot from a variety point of view. What I also explored in this book are people that you're Caribbean, but that whole dynamic of being from different Caribbean islands and in love, I do explore that as well. And then different Caribbean islands in love or different continents. I do Africa and Trinidad as well, living in the US. It just brings a complexity to the dynamic, that immigration story, that it brings a different dynamic to relationships and love. And I wanted, that always interests me because I think that so many of us are living in that reality today where we are from somewhere else, we are interacting with someone from who has a different rooted history, and then we're in a new place that has even more complexity. And I think that's a personal choice again, exposing humanity, exposing humans. Um, I don't, I, you know, I, from a Trinidad point of view, I do. tend to do people of African descent from Trinidad. And in this book, there's actually one character who has roots in India. And I think as I learn more from people like Celeste Muhammad and learn about the history of the Indo Caribbean person, I may explore some more of that as well in my writing. And also, I've been really connected with people also from I would say the Muslim diaspora as well, and from all over the world, but including Trinidad. And so I'm actually going into things I'm thinking about writing about next, but um, I don't know if I answered your question, but I typically take people from Trinidad and put them in other places because I also want to show people, perhaps in Trinidad, what that could be as well. Um, uh, Long term, I do see myself coming back to Trinidad, and so I'm also going to be exploring that as well in some of my writings that are coming up. So there's more to come.
That sounds great. So, in terms of going back to the source, Trinidad is where you would have been born and you grew up here. Yeah.
Yes.
So, how important is it for you to continue to include Trinidad in your work? And is it something that we're going to be seeing in every single piece of your work? Is it something that you hold so dear that you can't write anything if you don't reference Trinidad?
I must be rooted to Trinidad, people. Are we giving scores? I promised people we would give scores, of how these games are going. I am not keeping up, but I promised.
Yes,
But
I think
I
it's
must,
good.
I must be rooted to Trinidad. Listen, I feel like my grandmother knew what she was doing when she made me eat cascadura on a regular basis. I feel that my heart has always been there. There has not been a year since I left Trinidad in 1990 that I have not come back to Trinidad. Many times it's at least once, but two, three times I would come back. Um, it is when I am in Trinidad, Radia, it is it is home. It's not easy for me to explain, but there's a calm, there's a joy when I am back home. I'm very connected to the people that I went to school with, right? I'm on a WhatsApp channel with them every day. I stay connected with Caribbean people in general as well, all over the world, but I have a special place in my heart to Trinidad. When I did Scarlet Birthright, it was really important for me to get that book back into Trinidad. I mean, when I lived in Trinidad, growing up in Trinidad, I was in the library every single day. I was in bookstores in Sao every single day. Use all my allowance for meals and boons, but not, but I was very rooted. I think that also the other thing that connects me with Trinidad literature is in school, we had an English teacher, Mr. Thomas, may he rest in peace, but he taught us Shakespeare and Earl Lovelace and Pearl Antrus Springer. And so I think that it was something that was seeded throughout my young life, and I think is an indelible part of who I am. I cannot not talk about, be connected with, go back to Trinidad. I'm working really hard to get my books into Trinidad libraries as well. I think that Nalis has, they want to get more Trinidadian authors in the libraries in Trinidad. And then when you have amazing people who own bookshops like Scribbles and Quills and Paper Base and these other bookstores and Metropolitan, I mean, I just think that the sky's the limit. And so many people in Trinidad, I don't even think are very much aware of how deep and vibrant the literature community is, right? I think Boca's Lit Fest is fantastic, but I really want to get the word out to support places like Scribbles and Quills, and for people who are writing to get their books into here and to send more people into bookshops in Trinidad. It's so important to me because who I am as a reader, as a writer, is very much tied to Trinidad and Trinidad Lit, and supporting the bookshops in Trinidad is non-negotiable for me.
Yeah. So how much of your own journey moving from a space of functioning to thriving and learning that leaving isn't always the default bleed into the characters in this new collection?
Oh, so I mentioned that I've been married for a long time. I think that what's interesting is about my family history. I'll just share a little that um, I shared with my husband that that no relationship in my family really survived. Um, I think that was my experience. So growing up, I always felt that, but so when I say that, people might have divorced or separated, but they always remain friends and connected. So that was what I understood it to be. And so I always felt that I didn't need to stay married. Like it was, when you just, and you continue being friends. But my husband had a very different thought in mind, that it is non-negotiable, that it's not going to end. And so I think that that also really affected me in understanding that people stay. And also, I understand that it's not easy, and it's a choice. I do also understand that there are circumstances where you have to leave. So even one of my stories in Beyond First Glance under long-term observation, when relationships are not positive, or when relationships are dangerous to any party in the relationship, it is okay to exit. And so I also talk about that as well, or start to address that as well in relationships, because my message is not to stay together no matter what. My message is to stay together, grow and change, and continue to love and support each other in that growth. But if that is not the case, it is okay. You can fulfill yourself. But Radia, I feel like I have a question for you, because as a bookseller in Trinidad, I think you just celebrated 10 years. Is that right? 10 years as a
Well,
bookseller? 12 years. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
thank
Yes.
you.
And so I think I know that it is not also easy to run a business like that. And so, how do you think about, for the readers and writers that might be listening to this today or after we put it on YouTube, like how do you think about building that loyal customer base for an independent bookstore in Trinidad? What's the hardest lesson you've learned with finding people who feel, like who show up for you? What do you think, or what would you share as a business person that you would want authors and readers to know?
Well, that's a big question. So it's been 12 years, and the thing that I would have learned in those 12 years is really about the connection with people. I think what distinguishes us as an independent bookstore from any big chain would be that relationship that we create with our customers and readers and authors. And so I really think it's that personal touch, and I think is to find people to show up. I mean, that's a difficult one too, right? I mean, we could see that, evidently, but we push through, and I think that is what is important. And I think if we continuously keep showing up, um, people show up and people notice, and I think it's really just a message of not giving up. So I think that is the lesson.
It feels like a love story, Radia. It feels like a love story. I
Oh
love
yes,
that. I
Scribbles
love
is my first love.
that. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. I wonder about that because I feel like you're so positive. You're always helpful, and you're very supportive. So I want to thank you as well.
Of course, that is what we are here for. Yeah. So you've spoken about unlearning the need for gatekeepers' approval to publish your work previously, right? So, I mean, here we actively choose which voices we want to champion through our authors, and we even support and champion local businesses as well.
Mhm.
Um, how do you think our roles intersect in making sure authentic Caribbean stories reach the readers who need them?
Yeah. I think that as an author, it's really important to me that I support the booksellers, but I also support other authors as well. I think that on my mind very often are other people, and I believe in showing up for other people as well. I think that I think it's you have to give, and what you give is comes back to you. I don't think you give with the idea that you're going to get back, but it's just my belief in what I put out, I'm going to get back. I have found that to be absolutely true. I admire people like Kevin George, who from my very first book was there and championed my work. I just discovered an editor, Denise Mohammed, I think, who I'm going to leverage for one of my other stories because she is somebody who knows the Trinidad voice, very well. Alette, who I met at another event and helped me last year, I use as a publicist to it in Trinidad and way beyond as well. She helped me get into some London news magazines. And then Latoya, a fellow author as well, from Books with LR. She helps people publish books. I think that these people are examples of what community looks like. And I firmly believe that if you are a part of a community, it's for me, it's not just about selling books, but it's about blooming this genre, and not just one genre, right? I am actually making my way through Ronald Catwaro, um, horror. And for Caribbean horror, that is not something that I've experienced before, but I'm definitely and into it. But it's about us all banding together and helping each other. So I show up for people as much as possible, as much as I can. And I also am eternally grateful for people who show up for me as well. I don't take it for granted.
Yeah. And I think, well, for us at Scribbles and Quills, we just recognize the importance of sharing our local and Caribbean stories. And I think that we have so much talent within our region. And it's important for us to showcase that talent.
Yeah.
And that is why we give such a platform for our local and Caribbean authors here. So, definitely. So sometimes you build the stage, you open the doors, and only two people show up. Or only two people log on, right? So Scarlett, why is it so important to you to show up fully for every single person who did come here today?
So thank you. Thank you for the people in the room. Thank you for the folks on the phone. Um, I think that every person, no matter what the numbers, no matter what the volume of people, but every person that shows up, you were meant to intersect with them. I would never um, So one of the things in my life that has really affected me is that waiting for somebody to show up. So for me, as somebody who grew up with grandparents and then having parents that promised to come but didn't show up was so hurtful for me growing up. And so just personally, if I promise something, I will be there, period. And if somebody has taken the time and resources to come see me, I will be there fully for you. So thank you. And I think that you are the same way as well, Radia. So I appreciate that. But there's a reason that God is connecting you in this moment, and so, or the universe is connecting you in this moment. So I am open to that. I have found that in these spaces where it's a smaller group, sometimes you never know how meaningful that was to somebody else. And so, yes, I will show up every time, you know,
Yeah, I
and it's
think
always
that
good practice. Yeah.
yes, it is good practice. It is commendable. I mean, thank you for being here. I see the time. I think our Zoom will be off in 7 minutes. But before we go, and we will open the floor afterwards as well, we might have to just log back on. Scarlett, would you bless us with a reading
Girl,
from
I read a long time, you know. I will absolutely.
Beyond Good Plans? And something that really just feels like the heart of the collection to you.
Okay. So, what I have chosen to read for you today, I prepared, is from the very first story in the published edition released for the day. So, I'm doing certain excerpts from it. Yeah. Okay. Um, did you think about me? She asked. There it is. One of the questions that has circled her mind for 2 decades. She realizes it left a mark. He slows, then stops on the sidewalk facing her. His expression is open, vulnerable in a way she had not seen on many adult faces, even less so on the adult faces of men. I thought about you more than was reasonable, he says, more than was healthy. I thought about you when I could barely remember what day it was. I thought about you when I was driving my mother to chemo at 6 in the morning. I thought about you when I walked past the library and saw some girl with her head bent over books and a scarf that looks like yours, and it would make my chest hurt. Her eyes sting. She blinks hard. Your mom battled cancer? Yes, valiantly. She's in remission, 11 years now. They stop outside the cutest bookshop window and scan the offerings on display. He asks carefully, did you think about me? Yes, she says. The word comes out rough. Every time I heard someone laugh like you, every time I heard a song you played for me in airports, always, I would watch people secretly hoping you would appear, which was absurd. We did not even live on the same continent, as far as I knew. Love doesn't respect geography, he says. He said love like it was a thing that happens to you, not a choice. Her throat feels dry, irritated. She swallows. Were we a near thing or a thing you ran from? He exhales, breath visible in the coal. Both, he says. We were a near thing because we met right when both our lives were exploding, and I ran. I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't fight for us. Why? She asks. I didn't think I deserve you, he says. The answer lands with devastating simplicity. He looks away, then back. Back then, I had no money, no stability. My father was sick. My siblings needed me. My passport was a barrier in every room I entered. You were brilliant and fearless and walking into this wide, mysterious future. I felt like a weight that would drag you under. You were never a burden. I know that now. then all I could see was that choosing me meant choosing chaos. So I told myself I was being noble by not asking you to stay. The truth is, I was afraid. I was afraid you would say no. I was afraid you would say yes and I would ruin your life. Afraid that if I asked you to wait and it didn't work out, I'd be the villain in your story. They start walking again, slower. And you? He asked inaudibly. Did you run? She thinks about the girl she was, eyes permanently tired, jaw clenched, carrying expectations like stones in her bag. She had no practice of asking for anything that might be refused. I pretended not to care, she says, because I didn't know how to ask anyone to choose me. He was watching her now, gaze fixed, no interruption, no protest. I came from a family where you don't ask, she says. You take what is given and you say thanks. You do not rock the boat. You don't make demands. So when you said it was too much to ask me to wait, I agreed because the alternative would have been to say, actually, I want you to ask. I want you to want me enough to be unreasonable. I didn't know how to say that, she finishes. So I pretended it was casual. I told myself it was a fling. I packed my bags and smiled and told my friends it was all very mature. And then he prompts. And then I cried in the airport bathroom over the North Atlantic like a banshee. He closed his eyes briefly as if pained by the image. I wish I'd known, he says. I wish I'd told you, she says. Okay.